All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BETONLINE. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready. It's already noon today. Good Lord. It's last night was a late night at Ball Arena. Nikola Jokic decided he wanted to speak to us at 12:20. That was pretty late, but we made it happen. We're having fun here, and I'm excited to be able to talk about this game with you guys. This was a crazy one. This was one where you always appreciate being able to go to Ball Arena, being able to watch these games as a media member, but this is one where it means just a little bit more. Some pretty great history from Nikola Jokic, from the Nuggets. 149-141 in overtime was a great number. They performed exceptionally well, and I know it got a little bit close, and I know that they went to overtime, and I know that there were mistakes made. Not acknowledging that. I do think that everybody's kind of blowing it out of proportion that this game got close, especially other troll fan bases. I'm not sure why everybody feels the need to sort of put down what was an awesome performance from Nikola Jokic especially, but from a lot of Denver Nuggets, especially on the offensive end. So we'll get into it all. We're going to talk about all of it. Really appreciate everybody for stopping by. Noah Linden is in the chat. He says, I would trade an MVP for a ship, but the Nuggets aren't contenders this season. I don't know, man. Every time I try to write them off, every time I try to say that they aren't, or that I wouldn't bet on it, I have said they can win a championship. And when you can win a championship, you are a contender. Is it that high of a likelihood? No, because there are some other really great teams in the NBA, and Denver has flaws. But I won't write them off entirely because they have the best player in the world, pretty clearly. And also got Ozair in here. He says, hello, Ryan. I hope and prefer for Jokic to win the MVP, but last time he lost, we won a ship. So not a bad deal at all. Totally agree. If that's the consolation prize for Joker not winning, sign me up. Getting to cover another NBA Finals and Denver winning a Finals would be sick. That would be super cool. And I know Nuggets fans, if you care about legacy, 4 MVPs isn't going to hurt you, but 2 titles puts you into a different class entirely. It puts you already into a top 15 guaranteed for Jokic if you're agenda pushing like your boy. But we'll get into it all. Really appreciate the love and support on the podcast, folks. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. This podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline, #1 source for everything online betting in 2025. As the basketball tournaments come up in March, make sure to go check out all of the great things that they've got going on over there, all the props, the lines, the odds. It's a one-stop shop for everything sports betting. You're going to want to check it out. And if you don't want to do college basketball, NBA, NHL, UFC, lots of different options. Make sure to check out BetOnline. The game starts there. All right. Should be an interesting show. Probably going to go for about 35 minutes. 2 segments in this one. We'll focus on Jokic and then a little bit of Christian Braun in the first segment. A little bit of Aaron Gordon in the first segment. And then we're going to talk about why I don't care that it got close before doing an OKC preview for the next 2 days, Sunday and Monday, and those matchups coming up. This was a tremendous game. I went back and watched it before doing the show. And I still stand by the fact that Jokic makes it look so easy sometimes that I don't think the first half was that tremendous from him. He had 13 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, or whatever the number was. And it just didn't look that hard. It looked like he was making the easy reads, making the consistent stuff. Helped that the Nuggets were making their threes. Aaron Gordon made multiple on kickouts. Christian Braun made a kickout 3. You've got the cuts that are coming in from Peyton Watson hit a couple step back. He had a step back 3. Zeke Naji hit a 3 in the corner. There's not all of those were off of for Jokic assists, but it felt like because the Nuggets were running a little bit hot on the offensive end, on the shooting end, Jokic's assist total definitely went up and it looked pretty good. I saw Jokic had 30 potential assists in this last game, and that's a little high. I think the Suns defense definitely added to that. But the fact that Denver was converting on those potential assists as frequently as they were, that makes a big deal. Like that's 30 potential assists, and you get to 31 points, 21 rebounds, 22 assists. Like that shows that your team is converting on the opportunities that you are giving them. So credit should, of course, go to teammates in this situation too. Like Jokic, of course, gets all of the credit in the world, but it doesn't happen unless his team makes shots. And that's been such a storyline over the course of these last 2 weeks for Denver that they haven't been able to make enough shots, that they haven't been able to do the things to kind of punish the defense that is trying to take away Jokic's skill set, Jokic's scoring, Jokic's interior stuff. And it's funny, the first time that they faced a traditional defense again in Phoenix, where they were guarding him with a center and Nick Richards or Mason Plumlee for the entire night, and then they occasionally doubled. Like they couldn't really do anything crazy like the Celtics did or the Lakers did or whoever. And they just didn't have the personnel to make that happen because their starting power forward was Bol. So kind of a tough place to be. And like the next best guy that would have been able to do that might have been Kevin Durant, but you can't ask Kevin Durant to do that. Another kind of separating factor between him and LeBron. But it's just interesting to watch. Hey, first time Denver gets guarded like a traditional team and Jokic gets guarded like a traditional center like he's always been guarded. And he puts up 30, 20, 20. First time in NBA history. Like, I can sit here and say that, yeah, it probably wasn't his best performance of all time. Like, but that's because he's had so many other crazy ones that any other player, almost in history, any other player, this would be their top performance, no matter what. And with Jokic, it may not be his top performance of the season, let alone his career. He's on a run. He's on a crazy run, and the Nuggets are just reaping the rewards of it. When it's kind of cathartic, like I talked about, given the way that the past 2 weeks have gone. I wrote about it prior to the game, that 6-game stretch from the Lakers game to this last Sacramento game that they won were his lowest average rolling game score of the entire time, of this entire season. It was the kind of the low point, the nadir. And not by a lot, but just he had a couple of great games in there, but also had a couple of subpar games for who he is. And then he comes back out and puts up 30, 20, 20. Because why not? Why wouldn't he do that? He's a crazy individual, continues to do amazing things. And even though I didn't think that it was his best first half, turned it up in the second. His defense in the fourth quarter, even in the third quarter, was pretty good. There were a couple of opportunities for him to maybe make an extra play, and he was frustrated a couple of times when he didn't make the stop because he knew that he could get to that spot and just either miss the opportunity or miss the rotation just by a hair. But it was just very impressive to watch him, and with as much activity as he has on the defensive end, to be able to do what he does on the offensive end on a consistent basis, people have been desensitized to it. They just have. Like, you see these numbers, and first of all, the only player that you could ever consider getting a 30, 20, 20. How many players in NBA history, or frankly, how many players right now, like, do you think could actually do this? I don't think the answer is very high. Like, maybe Giannis, maybe Luka, not Shea. He's not big enough. LeBron, maybe, but like LeBron's never been close to this in terms of the statistical kind of thresholds here. Now, big numbers, facing a bad defense. Obviously, there were some circumstances that helped him get to this. You got to overtime, definitely helped. But it doesn't make this any worse. Like there's a lot of people that are trying to put this down as an accomplishment and say, oh, ho hum. I saw somebody on social. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but they were like, yeah, this was the 5th best performance of the night statistically. And they had to go jump through some hoops in order to get that. And a lot of it was based off of plus minus, where Jokic was only a +8 in a game that the Nuggets won by 8. And it does show that there are some things that Denver needs to work on, not just Jokic, but Denver. But come on, man. 30, 20, 20. Who does that? Nobody does that. Jokic is the only guy in NBA history, other than maybe Wilt, that you could see, yeah, he probably did this. It's crazy stuff. He made a lot of great plays, and the key play that he made, the key pass that he made was to Christian Braun at the end of regulation. About 10 seconds left, the Nuggets had an opportunity. They never took a timeout. They just ran two-man game with Jokic and Murray at the top. Christian Braun set a brief screen and then flared out to the top of the key, kind of trying to give them a little bit of space. Michael Porter in one corner, Aaron Gordon in the other corner to try to space it out. Jokic and Murray run the two-man. Murray gets downhill, passes it to Jokic after he gets cut off, makes the right play. Jokic is going to rotate the ball to the corner. Devin Booker rolls off of Braun and leaves Braun wide open at the top of the key for him to make one of the biggest shots of his career. Matt and I were doing Locked On last night, and he was putting it down. I'm not having any of it. That was a big shot by Christian Braun, and he deserves just a ton of credit. The way that they left him and have consistently left him and dared him to make shots, it's a big deal to hit shots in that moment and to be trusted enough by Jokic in that moment. Everybody talks about Jokic is going to make the right play, He didn't have to pass. He didn't have to. Denver was tied. They were tied at 122, and he could have let go of it and decided, you know what? I'm going to take the final shot of the game. And he didn't. He passed it up to Christian Braun, and Christian paid it off in a big way. Christian last night shot 25 points, 4 of 5 from 3, 8 of 11 from the line, which means he was 4 of 6 from 2, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, had a block, plus 12 in a game that they won by 8. Just another tremendous game from Christian Braun. And I know that there's some weaknesses there trying to guard guys like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. Like, that's a really hard assignment for anybody. I thought that Braun stepped up to the table, and this was an opportunity for Phoenix to win this one. Like, it didn't feel like they were going to be able to survive when Denver was up 20 in the third quarter. They come back, they're relentless. And in those situations, you can often let go of the rope, and Denver just never did. They never fully let go. And Christian, I think that this is just another opportunity for him to prove that he is up to that task. He is up to that task as a player. He's somebody who is absolutely worthy of most improved player this year. He's not going to get the credit because Cade Cunningham is going to get the credit because, first overall pick. Of course he's developing into a star. Like, why wouldn't we give him most improved player when he was really good last year and also really good this year? I don't know. Look, it's selective. It's always been selective. There are agendas, and this is one that the NBA is going to give most improved player to the first overall pick on a consistent basis, because why not? Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is that Christian is going to continue to be dared. It's going to happen every single time. First year in the playoffs, he shot 20% from 3. Last year in the playoffs, he shot 22% from 3. He has not been a good three-point shooter in the playoffs. The more and more he gets challenged, the better and better he's going to get. Iron sharpens iron in this situation, in my mind. And for Braun, these are the reps that are going to be valuable. These are the moments that are going to be valuable. He's averaging 15 points a game, 5 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and shooting 38% from 3 now. Like, dude is playing really well. And the fact that he's sort of amping up that three-point volume a little bit, that does matter to me. 82 games last year, he attempted 164 threes. 62 games this year. He's played 62 out of 63. He's now attempted 171, so 7 more in 20 fewer games. The volume is going up. The responsibility to take those threes is going up. And these are the moments why. These are the moments why they are so important. He hit a clutch 3 in the corner in the overtime, and it was a big, big deal. And I just continue to think that, like, I'm just on that island. I think he's going to continue to get better. There are scenarios where he isn't a long-term starter for the Nuggets, where they decide, hey, we're going to go a different direction. And that could pertain to a lot of different things that happened this offseason. But in terms of right now, it's so clear to me that his versatility, that his ability to rise, that his competitiveness, that, like, the pass that he made to Jokic over his head in the first half was a great pass. And, like, it shows that there is still some more to his game to be unlocked as he gets better. It wouldn't surprise me that down the line that he's averaging like 16, 5, and 5, because he's a smart passer. He makes the right play. He averages 1 turnover per game, 2.3 assists per game. Like, he can amp up the playmaking a little bit as the team needs it from him going forward in his career. And they're going to ask him to do it in the playoffs. He may not be ready right now, but I just think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be good. And I'm very excited to see where his growth continues to go from here. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about Aaron Gordon, who had a career night from 3 himself. We're going to talk about the fact that this game got close and why I don't care that much. And then we're going to do an OKC preview. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. We are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really quickly, before we get going, this podcast, as you know, is brought to you by SCL Mortgage, a new sponsor for Mile High Sports for the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. Are you looking for a great mortgage company that you can trust with hundreds of happy customers and a 5-star reputation? Contact our friends at SCL Mortgage. They can get you a new home if you need down payments. Did you know if you could get a second mortgage, if those are, like, they're available to you if you want them? SCL Mortgage has hundreds of people just like you, and they achieve their dreams as well, specializing in assisting people with unusual financing needs as well as those with great credit. Call 303-790-2222 or visit myspecialmortgage.com. That's 303-790-2222, and let SCL Mortgage know that you came from us. All right, let's get into this. Aaron Gordon deserves credit too. The way that he started this game was awesome. I thought that he would absolutely be the story of this game. 4 of 4 from 3 to start, and he pulled up in Kevin Durant's face in that first quarter, kind of midway through. And everybody's like, "What are you doing?" But actually, everybody was just very happy to see him be shooting, because dude was letting it fly. He's playing really well. And seeing him have that consistency and have that just level of shot making is very, very impressive and very, very useful for this Nuggets team. Think about the games that Aaron missed over the course of these last few. He is very important from a spacing perspective now, shooting 44% from 3. Never thought I'd see the day, man. 51.5% from the field, 80% from the line. Like, there are indicators that this shooting is just real or closer to real than what he previously was. Like, prior to his time prior to this year, on his career, he was shooting 32% from 3 as a player, but he was also shooting 68% from the line. So those are generally pretty strong indicators that not a massive shooter. This year, 80% from the free throw line, 44% from three, and he continues to show that he has proved some stuff and he has worked on this. And I have maintained throughout my entire time talking about Gordon that if he can space, he will prolong his career. Like it's like Paul Millsap in Denver. He wasn't a great three-point shooter before he got to Denver. And then towards the middle and end of his Denver stint, he started really splashing from three because he had to. He had to change up his game. He had to find some spacing opportunities. And Gordon is exactly like that too. Somebody who's more of an athletic, physical, traditional power forward type. Now he's got to find more opportunities as a spacer, especially in the modern NBA. So I love it. I love seeing it from him. He's just got to stay healthy. He's got to stay physically ready to go, and he's trying. There's no question about that. So tough matchup for him with Kevin Durant. KD had 29, 9, and 5, but I think that Aaron played him to pretty close to a standstill, or about as close to a standstill as you could possibly ask for. That's what happens when you have 27 points on 9 of 15 and 7 of 10 from three. Really impressive night from AG. Other guys to play well, Jamal Murray did play well. It was under the radar, I think, how well he played. 19 points, 14 shots, 8 of 14 from the field. Only 1 of 4 from three. He has been shooting the three-point really well, so I'm not really that concerned. 3 steals, 1 turnover, plus 15, tied for the team lead. Michael Porter also tied for the team lead at plus 15. I thought his man-on defense, his on-ball defense, Michael Porter, was really good. It was pretty good. And when you're asked to guard guys like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and stick with them, that's a tall task, but he was up to it. And where Denver really struggled was when it was the rotations and when guys were closing out, not necessarily closing out that accurately. I didn't think that Michael Porter was that guy, especially on the ball as often, but he was pretty bad off the ball defensively. But he's also 1 of 5 from three in this last game, and he continues, I think, to struggle a little bit from distance. Also fouled 6 times and fouled out towards the end of this one, but right at the end of overtime. So not really a big deal. But he's got to continue to find it. He's got to continue to find opportunities to be the best version of himself, and struggling a little bit. So we'll see what this next game brings, what this next 2-game set brings against OKC, because they're the prototypical team that he has to perform well against, that he hasn't really performed well against before, at least this year. So see what he can provide. Off the bench, Denver played 3 guys: Russell Westbrook, Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji. They didn't play Jalen Pickett. They didn't play DeAndre Jordan. If I had to guess for this upcoming game set against OKC, they'll probably do the same thing. No DeAndre Jordan, no Jalen Pickett, unless somebody gets into foul trouble or gets hurt. I think that Russ played pretty well overall. He was a minus 11 in this game. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into that. I thought he was pretty solid on both ends of the floor. I definitely don't think that it was him. Although there were a couple of plays, he turned the ball over in transition on a play, just trying to spin through the defense and just lost control of the ball. But I tend to think that what he's continuing to do is just trying to find the rhythm in this new role. I think Christian has to start. That I've felt pretty comfortable about saying, especially for Denver's present and future. But Russ, he will continue to play, he played 26 minutes in this game. He will continue to play about 22 to 26 minutes pretty much every single night. But I am glad that Peyton Watson did play too. 11 points for him, 4 of 7 from the field, 3 of 5 from three. Only 2 rebounds and 2 assists and only 1 block. Peyton wasn't as good defensively last night as he usually is in this particular matchup. As evidenced by the Suns scored 141 and he was a minus, and Russ was a minus, and Zeke was a minus. So Denver's best minutes were certainly with the starters. But you're going to have some minuses somewhere. And as long as Denver's a little bit more controllable, it's going to be okay. Zeke Naji only played 13 minutes last night, but he was only a -4, and that's within striking distance. He switched out onto different guys. He did get scored over by KD a couple times, but he had 6 points, 2 of 4 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, 1 of 2 from the line. Got to continue to get those rebounds, but I could say that about every Nugget last night, so I'm not necessarily just worried about Zeke, especially when he's switching onto the perimeter on a consistent basis. Denver's got to be better about controlling the glass in those situations from everybody, not just from Zeke Naji. Not really his fault when he's contesting shots on the perimeter. So see what happens, but like it is funny to look at Denver's box score. 21 rebounds for Jokic, 17 rebounds for everyone else. So funny. Now, to be fair, Phoenix only missed 40 total shots, and they missed 6 total free throws. So it wasn't like there were a whole bunch of rebounds to go around in this particular game. But Denver still got to be better. I think, and so I wrote about this, it got close in this game. Denver was up 20, 85-64. They Jokic picks off a pass, pushes it ahead to Michael Porter, and he gets a slam. Suns call timeout. They're up 21 with about 6 minutes or so to go in the third quarter. Sorry, I saw the camera lagging a little bit. And then this game was tied. And things kind of they went poorly. Denver did not finish that third quarter very well. They didn't get enough offense, and they certainly didn't get enough defense. And then I thought that they needed to engage a little bit more on the defensive end in the fourth quarter. They didn't do that. They allowed the exact same number of points. It was pretty interesting. So they allow 28, 28, 35, and 34. Usually Denver's a great second half defense. Yesterday, they were a better first half defense. It wasn't like they were great, but they were certainly better. So a lot of people panicked. A lot of people were frustrated. A lot of people thought, oh, wow, you went to the OT with the Suns. Wow, you left Kevin Durant wide open in the corner. Man, this team isn't a contender. I don't think of it that way. I think that in these situations, Denver, they haven't played with their starters that much, and they're facing another team that is also fully healthy. Like that Suns team is better than people give it credit for, and they're also a tough matchup for Denver to guard because they have Kevin Durant and because they have a whole bunch of guys that can space the floor and can shoot. Guys like Grayson Allen, who shot 2 of 2 from 3. He only took 2 shots, but he took 2 threes, but he made them. Royce O'Neal shot 2 of 4. Tyus Jones shot 2 of 4. Colin Gillespie only played 5 minutes for some reason, but he went 1 of 1. Devin Booker shot 5 of 10. The only guy who really shot poorly are 2 guys, Bradley Beal and Bol Bol. Bol Bol was useless in this game last night. Bradley Beal did some good stuff inside the arc and created some offense. He had 9 assists and 0 turnovers. So, their offense, when they're fully healthy, is really good, or at least in theory, it should be really good as long as they avoid turnovers. And so Denver not getting enough stops is not really surprising to me because they're facing a team that's extremely talented. And the fact that they haven't won as many games as they need to, it's a pretty big denigration of their defense, but also just the fact that they don't have a lot of competitive stuff going on. But it didn't show last night. They played really well, and I thought that they fought pretty hard. So it's interesting to kind of look at it from that perspective. Again, I'm not that worried. Denver has to go through some of these things. They didn't perform as well in clutch time, especially kind of leading up to that Christian Braun 3-point shot, as you would hope. Out of OT, they scored 24 points. 24 points in 5 minutes is crazy. The offensive execution was great. They made threes. They made buckets. They didn't get a lot of stops, obviously, but the stops that they did get led to buckets. I'm going to go through, and we're going to count how many times they didn't score in OT. There's a score, there's a score, there's a score, there's a score, There's a score. There's a score on that possession after Jokic missed a three, but then they got an offensive rebound. There's a score. 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 Guys, they literally scored on every possession in overtime. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And so I know, again, it's the Suns. It's not like this shouldn't be breaking news here. They don't do a lot of great things on the defensive end. I'm not going to sit here and say that they do. But Denver still has to make the plays. They still have to make the buckets. And previously, Denver has struggled with the Suns. Like, they've struggled with them in terms of sometimes just getting shots. Yusuf Nurkic, for all of his flaws against most of the other teams, actually does a really good job against Denver most of the time. And he does a good job against Jokic in terms of cutting off some of the paint stuff and what they try to accomplish. So it's interesting. Denver still has to make the plays, and they did. And I'm going to be like crediting them for that. This was the way that they had to win this game because they struggled to stop the Suns. Okay, they won the game. There are going to be times where they have to lock in more defensively. They didn't have to do it this time. And I thought that there were still some pretty good possessions defensively. It just didn't happen as often as everybody wanted it to. Okay. OKC. Couple tough games coming up. Sunday, Monday. The first one on Sunday is a matinee matchup. It is it's on March 9th. It is at 11 a.m. In addition, daylight savings time tomorrow, folks. So it's actually, I believe, at 10 a.m. Like, for those with a body clock, that's going to be pretty. That's going to be a pretty early game. So you got to make sure to be ready for it, and Denver's got to be ready for it. I do not expect them. Yeah, I do not expect them to win that one. If you saw yesterday, OKC won against Portland by 20. They didn't play anybody. They sat Shea, they sat Dort, they sat Cason Wallace, they sat Chet Holmgren, they sat Isaiah Hartenstein, they sat you name it, they probably sat that player, getting them ready for this upcoming game. Aaron Wiggins, he was a dominant player. He had 30 points in the Portland game. Big Jalen Williams of Arkansas had a triple-double because why wouldn't he have? It's pretty funny that no matter what they do, they're still going to win because they've got a talented, loaded team from top to bottom. So I think that they rested and they're getting ready for this big matchup. I think that they'll play their guys in both of those matchups unless they dominate by so much on national TV that they're like, yeah, we can punt on this one. We don't care. Nobody's catching us for the 1 seed. You can win this one, but it doesn't matter. I don't think they're going to do that. I really think that they're going to care about this, and I think that Mark Daigneault is going to try to put together a crazy game plan to match up with Jokic and to match up with what the Nuggets do. Going to try to take advantage of Jokic's weaknesses while also mitigating Jokic's strengths. That's what a lot of these teams have done. So OKC is by far the best defensive team in the NBA. They have only been 10th in since February 1st or so, in terms of defensive rating. So there are weaknesses and they're not infallible, but I do think that when they're locked in, they are by far the best defensive team in the league. And so much of that comes down to the versatility of their personnel. They can go big if they want to with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. They have big Jalen Williams, but they've also got a bunch of versatile wings and forwards and guards and guys that can get their hands in passing lanes. They force turnovers better than just about anybody in the NBA. And they're going to be a massive headache to deal with. It's just facts. That team is so good. And that defense is so good. They're not perfect. They foul. They allow offensive rebounds. If you kind of get into the teeth of their defense, they'll give you some opportunities for sure. And they haven't been as precise of late. But again, this is a big matchup. I think those guys obviously would want this MVP award for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So they are going to try to get it for him. And that means making Jokic's life as difficult as possible and making Shai's life as easy as possible. They're going to do what they can to get him some buckets, to get him some opportunities. I think that that's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Daniel Miller's being dumb in the comments. He's asking, did last night save Malone's job? No, because if they lose in the first round, then Malone's gone. like what are we doing here? Like why do you come in and do this, man? You do it every time. I don't understand it. I forgot to mention from Jay Kerr here, that last MPJ steal was clutch. It absolutely was. He was absolutely he struggled shooting the ball last night, but the one thing that you could really say about Mike, he cares a lot about this stuff, and he cares a lot about being good enough defensively and being helpful in these situations. And so he saw an opportunity and he took it, and good that he did, because that was a big, big play. Denver was down at that point, and they made it happen. So glad to see it. In terms of this game, yes, there's a whole bunch of MVP storylines behind it. That's going to be what really shapes the narrative for this one. But it is going to be interesting to see how these teams match up with each other, because there's such a strong possibility that they'll face each other in the playoffs. It's not guaranteed, especially if Denver's the 2 or 3 seed and the Thunder are the 1. Like, both of those teams will have opportunities to fail before facing each other if they would in the conference finals. Denver is obviously more likely to fail, especially if they're on the side of the bracket that has the Lakers, who are going to be a tough matchup for them. But I think in general, the Nuggets are going to be tested. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle the ball pressure, how they handle all of the schemes that Dagnall can throw at them, and the versatility that the Thunder have to play a bunch of different ways. They're going to find more opportunities to put Jokic on an island, and they're going to find opportunities to get SGA on an island against some of Denver's weak points, whether that's Jamal Murray in the post, whether you're switching out and you've got somebody like Michael Porter trying to guard in isolation. Like, it's a little bit different when Michael Porter is guarding Devin Booker or Kevin Durant than he is when guarding Shai. Shai's just a better player. Shai's just a better scorer. And more crafty, especially in isolation. He's the best isolation player in the league right now. So Denver's going to have a tough time. I don't think that they win. Now, what we've learned about Denver is that they split the second half of a back-to-back, and they often win those. So if Denver can get the split, then be interesting to see what the narratives are after this game, or after this weekend. But if they get waxed tomorrow, especially for such an early morning tip, 11 a.m., because why wouldn't they go at 11 a.m.? What is so the next game, it's Phoenix versus Dallas. Of course, Dallas gets the 1:30 tip, in Denver, because they're in OKC, has to go at 11 a.m. because why not? Good for the international audience, I will say that. Serbian fans, Australian fans even, they'll have an opportunity to watch this one and be happy. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I'm very curious to see what it looks like. Going to be big. Going to be big. If Denver gets waxed in both of those, SGA is probably the MVP. If Denver wins both, Jokic is probably the MVP. Shouldn't mean it. Like, a 2 out of 82 shouldn't have so much building on it. But like, this is a big time. It's a big opportunity. All right, folks. I think that's going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and SCL Mortgage. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I will have on this platform, I will have a podcast on Monday morning, and then I'll have another one on Tuesday morning following these 2 OKC games. Should be fun. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Always enjoy. I will talk to you guys very soon.